Let's be honest, most infinite banking pitches just feel like scams, don't they? I know it did for me too. So I went and rebuilt it from the ground up, and I actually got it to work. Here's how. Most whole life insurance infinite banking plans are built to benefit the agent, not you. This is the biggest pet peeve I have in this industry. I learned this firsthand. I made that mistake because when I first bought a whole life insurance policy, which by the way, I actually had the opinion that whole life insurance was a waste of money. But when I heard all these real estate investors say it's amazing and how you can make all this money with it, I thought I'll give it a try. And they were telling me like you could go buy cars with it, buy houses and all this other stuff. Well, I went and got the policy from the agent they all recommended. Well, the thing is, I remember looking at that policy saying, this is kind of expensive. These first few years, I've got no cash in here. Because understand, there's the death benefit, but there's also this tax-free savings account that earns high yields, right? It's like 6% right now. At that time, it was like 7%. And so I said, holy cow, like, is there a way to make this cheaper? You know, because I want to have cash build up faster in this, especially if I want that tax-free return. And the agent told me, no, you can't do that. You'll get taxed if you do. So I took his word for it. 2 years later, the recession hits, I'm going broke, and I realized, I said, I can't keep doing this anymore. I can't keep paying $1,000 a month into this. And so when I called the insurance company, I said, are there any options? They said, yeah, pay the premium. Okay, what if I can't pay the premium? Then you'll lose the policy. And so I lost the policy. I thought that was just the way it went. I blamed the recession on it. But the problem is this, is I found out just months later, as I was starting to research deeper into this infinite banking, and what I could actually, how I can design the policy myself, because I still had an insurance license at this time, I actually said, you know what if I could pull these different levers? And I did. And all of a sudden what happens? I found out I could have cash from day one. The very thing the insurance agent told me I couldn't do, I could do. And so I went back to him. I sat down in his office, I showed him numbers, he showed me numbers and stuff. You know, we're comparing and, you know, kind of measuring which policy was bigger and better. Mine was. And so we're doing this, and finally I just get down to it. I was like, look, everything you said is pretty much false. Why did you design it this way? Why did you design it to where it was super expensive? He says, Chris, I did it that way because I couldn't afford to cut my commissions. I was so mad, so ticked off. And so eventually I started trying to find ways to design it better and better over the last 17 years to the point where we got it down to a science. Here's what makes it better. So let me tell you the difference here. Because again, most of these agents are going for high commissions versus high performance. They have this debate between it, right? Because they're like, well, if I cut my commissions back to the minimal amount possible, well, yeah, the client will make more money, but I don't make more money. And they go in this scarcity. And so even if you get these infinite bankers, now some people talk about infinite banking, they might do it as bad as what mine was, right? Which is you have no money in for the first few years. Just so you know, whole life insurance is front loaded with its insurance costs, but then gets cheaper over time. It's the opposite of term insurance. Term insurance starts cheap, gets more expensive over time. Whole life starts out more expensive and then gets cheaper as the years go on. But again, if all that money is going to pay for those costs, you know, you don't really have anything to show for it. So I started figuring out how to pull different levers. One of those levers I pulled, of course, was like paid up additions. You could put it paid up additions, which is like extra money above and beyond. It's really overfunding a policy. You can also do things like term riders to make the cost a little bit lower, but still have a higher death benefit. So then you can actually go right up and bump up against the IRS limits. Just so you know, the higher the death benefit, the higher the amount of money you can contribute to your policy, to your plan. So when people are like, well, how much can you contribute? Well, short answer is 25% of your stated gross annual income. The long answer is, of course, like it just depends on what the death benefit is. The higher the death benefit, the more you can put in. But remember, higher the death benefit, the more the costs. And so we try to reduce those costs as low as we can go while still keeping it tax-free. That is the key. Again, most agents don't even know how to do this, all right? So it's not their fault. The insurance companies won't teach them how to do this. There is a minority of insurance agents that do know how to do this, but refuse to do it because they don't want to cut their commissions back because they feel like, really they fear that they won't make enough money. I've learned the opposite. I had a friend, for example, that was in the real estate space. He was putting in over $6,000 a year into a policy. Now I told him up front, I said, hey, listen, I know the guy you're using, he's a schmuck, okay? He's a schmuck. It's a waste. It's not like the policies I talk about, you know, because remember, I got ripped off. I'm like, this guy does the same rip off that I did earlier. He's like, yeah, but this guy sends our company referrals. I'll use him anyways. So he does like $6,200 a year into this plan. Very small considering this guy's a multimillionaire, right? And so he puts it in the plan. 6 years later, he says, Chris, I've paid now over 37 grand into this policy, and I've only got 18,000 in this cash account. You're right, this was a ripoff. I said, yeah, especially if you do it that way. So I showed him what he could do instead. He's like, wait a minute, Chris, you're saying like if I put in $10,000 a year, I'll have $8,000 from day one? I'm like, yeah, and that's the worst it gets. He's like, this is great. Can I do more? And so what did he end up doing? He ended up doing 50,000 a year. He almost did 100,000 the first time. He did 100,000 later. He did another 100,000 on top of the 50. He did 50,000 a year because he knew his minimum was only 12,000 a year that he had to pay. But the maximum, the cool thing is he'd pay up to 50,000 and he would have like almost 40,000 from day one. So he's like, man, like this is amazing. And even if I can't pay the premium, there's enough cash in here to keep the policy going forever. I said, that's right. That's why it's so much better than what my plan was and his plan was too, where you had to keep paying into it or you lose it. And that's the difference, right? That is what makes it work better. And what's crazy about this, just so you know, because these agents go into scarcity, what's crazy is I made double the commissions that agent made on that $6,000 policy. Why? Because it was in the client's benefit. That's the thing that these agents don't understand, because remember, this is the only way they make money. Me, I don't give a crap because I have $50,000 a month coming in passively from my investments and such. I don't need to do this. And even our people, same thing. We have them do investments and stuff in real estate so they don't just need to make a commission. That is what you need. Like, you can't trust an opinion of somebody who knows they have to feed their family, and they might still give you a little bit of cash. Maybe they'll say, hey, 60% cash in the first year, that's good, right? 70% cash, that's good, right? They'll say that, but they're still not doing the best for you because they're trying to find a little win-win that they make a little bit more money on it, where if they just did the best from day one, did the policy like they would do on themselves or their own family members, that's the key. We always write our policies like we would on ourselves. The best that we can do, the most milk we can get out of it, to get the most juice out of the squeeze, or whatever other analogy you want to use, that's what we do every single time. Now, obviously, there's a whole other aspect. I mean, there's a lot to learn about infinite banking. If you want to learn more about that, check out this next video here.